Let's finish up that lesson that we briefly talked about yesterday, okay? So here's the deal, guys. What we're going to look at today is one of the topics that I know that you definitely struggle with, okay? And that's factoring the trinomials. All right, those are the things that have three terms in them, right? Three terms in them. And it's reverse foiling. It's unfoiling. It's un-tic-tac-toeing, right? So it's taking what, guys? It's taking this, right? The thing with 1, 2, 3 terms and going back to that. Okay, so do we remember that process? All right. Well, okay, I'm not asking you if you remember how to do it, but do you remember doing something like that? Great. Okay. Now, for our purposes, right, we will eventually talk about how to do something like one of these, something that actually has 4 terms in them. All right, we'll approach that later on. But we want to be able to take something like one of these and go to that. Okay, and it's definitely a skill that takes some time. One of the methods that your teachers discussed with you in algebra class was how do we do this using a guess and check method, right? And so if I gave you this, right, and I said, let's factor it, right? You could simply write down something that might work, test it, and see if it's the answer. But the problem is with something like this, guys, there's more than one correct choice. Do you agree? And what do I mean by more than one correct choice? Do you agree that, and don't write this down, but do you agree that to get a 6x squared, I could have that and that, right? Multiplying those two together will definitely give me a 6x squared, okay? But I could have also had what? That and that, right? Okay. So I know that it's either gonna be one of these or it's gonna be one of these. Okay. Then the other thing I look at is how do I get a negative 6? Well, to get a negative 6, I either have that and that. Does that give me negative 6? Or I have that and that. Does that give me a negative 6? Yeah. And I have, oh wow, there's more. This and that gives me negative 6. Or I have that, and that gives me negative 6. Oh, no, yeah, sorry, 1. Thank you. Okay. So here's the thing, right? The guess and check method, oh, by the way, hey, I got to take these 1, 2, 3, these 4 options over here, and I got to apply all 4 options to each of these options. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if I put this 6 here and this 1 here, then I got to consider putting the 1 here and the 6 here. So do we agree that this becomes cumbersome, right? And so one of the things that we want to do, guys, is we want to eliminate choices that aren't that intelligent. What I mean by that is there are some reasonable answers and there are some answers that, bless you, and there are some answers that aren't quite as reasonable. So let's talk about each of these and let's talk about what makes them reasonable or not. This definitely gives me the 6x, right? Or the 6x squared. This definitely gives me the negative 6, right? Okay. This definitely gives, oh, hang on. Does that give me the 6x squared? No, so this doesn't make sense, right? So we're trying to eliminate some choices, right? And we're looking at all the combinations. Does this give me the 6x squared? Does this give me the negative 6? Okay, so this is a little bit more intelligent, right? Does this give me the 6x squared? Yes. Does this give me the negative 6? Okay, right? So just by doing that, I can take a multiple choice question and make it a little simpler, right? Sometimes we don't actually have to be able to do the unfoiling to pick out the multiple choice answer correctly, right? We can look at the choices and work the other way, right? And that's what we just sort of did, okay? So we said 2 of these guesses are unintelligent and shouldn't even be checked. We just cross them out. Of the two that remain, which is correct? Well, what would I do, guys? If it's a multiple choice question and I didn't want to factor it, I could take this choice, play tic-tac-toe, take this choice, play tic-tac-toe, and see which one gets me this. Agreed? All right? So if I took choice, I guess it's choice 3, and we did tic-tac-toe, I have what? I have 6x and 1, and I have x minus 6. And we said when we play tic-tac-toe, our answer becomes this thing in the box, right, or in the circle. 6x times x is 6x squared. X times 1 is 1x. This is negative 36x. This is negative 6. And x minus 36x is minus 35x. And that appears to be the right answer, right? So one way that we can tackle, right, a multiple choice question is by using our choices to our advantage, right? Great. All right, well, here's the thing, guys. The easiest problems to do are the ones where the x squared term is what? A 1, right? Yeah, because, guys, if this x squared term is 1, do I really have to worry about there being all that many options? Yeah, like, I know, like, do you guys agree? There's no doubt about it that this problem is going to start off with an x and an x, right? That is surefire, guaranteed, no doubt about it. Okay? Guys, there's also something else that I know. Undoubted, surefire. This number is what? Give me a sign. Negative 35. The only way to get a negative 35 is if one of these is positive and one of these is negative. So I know, no doubt about it, that that is going to be positive and negative. Now, guys, here's the thing. Somebody who struggles in math is going to ask themselves, why is this one positive and why is this one negative, right? Guys, it doesn't, you can put them in either order. Do you agree with that? Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, you're fine. Okay, you guys agree with that? All right, so here's what I got to do now. Tell me all the different ways that I can multiply numbers and get 35. All the ways. 5 times 7. Now, for right now, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write these down twice, and I'll show you why in a minute, okay? What's another way? There's another way. 1 times 35, of course. Okay. Now, again, I'm not going to put signs on these yet, okay? But this middle term has to be a 2, right? Do any of these choices have a sum or a difference of 2? Can I add them together or can I subtract them to get a 2? If I add these together, I get 12. If I subtract them, I get 2 or negative 2, right? Depending on the order that I do it. If I added these together or subtracted these, right? So it all depends on the way I want to sort of play the game. Does that make sense? Okay. Do you guys agree that there's no way I can add these or subtract these and get what? 2. There's no way, right? So I know it's not going to be these. So what are the ways that I can have a 5 and a 7? Well, I can either have a positive 5 and a negative 7 or a negative 5 and a positive 7. Because what did I say these had to be? Positive and negative. Well, what do I want this term in the middle to be? Positive number, right? If I add these two together, what is the only one that gives me a positive number? The negative 5 and the positive 7. So I know that this has to be positive 7 and negative 5. Now, I explained that, guys, probably different than some of your other teachers in the past. They had you write out a whole list of numbers, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. I like thinking about this and trying to limit my options, right? Because it requires a little less work, I'm lazy. That's just me. All right, what do I know about B? Well, I know for a fact, surefire, no doubt about it, that this and this is true. Agreed? Okay. My next question, guys. This number is 24, right? Well, the only way that I can get a 24 by multiplying is if the two numbers that I'm multiplying were either both positive or both negative, because negative times a negative and a positive times a positive. Okay, but guys, remember something else. How do I get this middle term? I take the things that I've FOILed and I combine them by adding them, right? Well, guys, the only way I can add two numbers and get a positive, if the two numbers were both positive or both negative, is if the numbers were both what? I'm gonna say it again. That came out. We already know that both numbers were what? Either negative or positive. Well, guys, if you add two negative numbers, what do you get? If you add two negatives, I'm gonna give you again, think about money. If somebody owes you $5 and they borrow 7 more, do they still owe you money or do you owe them money? They still owe you money, right? So when you add two negatives, you get a negative, right? Okay, great. If I add two positives, I get a positive, no doubt about it, right? So the only way that this can be a positive number and this can be a positive number is if both numbers were what? Positive. There's no other way. There's no other way, right? So what are the ways that I can get 24 by multiplying? Well, the easiest one is what? That. Okay, but do those two numbers, guys, do those two numbers add up to be 11? No. All right, so give me another way. All right, you want to go right to the answer. Great. 8 times 3. I agree. All right, again, think about what we're doing here, guys, right? If you were to now FOIL this out or tic-tac-toe it, you're going to wind up with an 8x and a 3x, which gives me the 11x, right? Okay, now we're going to play the game back. That last example, we're going to sort of do it the other way. I know for a fact, no doubt about it, that what? X squared has to give me x and x. Guys, I know that I have to multiply the two numbers for them to be positive, which means the numbers were either both positive or both negative. But the middle term is what? Negative. Well, there's no way that you can what? Add two positive numbers together to get a negative, right? So I know for a fact that these both have to be negative. No doubt about it. What are the ways I can get 22? The easiest one is what? 22 and 1. But what do those multiply to be? Well, they multiply to be the what? The 22 that I want. But there's no way that I'm going to combine these to get 13. Right? Agreed? Give me another way to get 22. 11 and 2. Do 11 and 2 give me 13 somehow? Yeah, there you go. 11 and 2. Both negative, right? Both negative. All right. What do I know? I know for a fact, no doubt about it, it's a surefire thing that the first terms here are x's. This number is negative 50. The only way that I can multiply two numbers and get a negative is if the numbers have different signs, positive and negative. Now, your teachers probably talked about this, and I'll show you another little trick here in a minute, but give me a way I can get 50. I want all the ways now. I don't want just the right answer. I want all of them. Give me them all. Start with the biggest one. 50 and 1. Give me the next biggest one. 25 and 2. Give me the next biggest one. 10 and 5. Is there any others? Say it again. Okay, now here's the thing, okay? And I'm sure your teachers probably taught you this method. Guys, whatever number is in here, if this number is negative, that means the bigger of these two numbers has to be the negative, right? So I have 50 and 1. So this has to be the negative and this has to be the positive. I have 25 and 2. That means this has to be the negative and this has to be the positive. I have 10 and 5. That means this has to be the negative and this has to be the positive. Which one of those choices adds to be a negative 5? Negative 10 and 5, right? And so that may have been a technique that your teachers used with you in algebra class also, right? Are we starting to sort of remember what these look like? Okay. Now, the next thing you guys did is you then did something like one of these, right? And these ones were a little bit harder, but maybe not quite as hard as the most difficult ones because of the 3x squared. Now you know for a fact, no doubt about it, what that first two numbers or first two terms have to be. You know it has to be a what? A 3x and an x. That's the only way that you can get that 3x squared. Yes? Now, I'm still going to play the same game. How do I get negative 40? One number has to be positive and one number has to be negative. But here's the problem, guys. Does it matter? Does it matter now which one of these I make positive and negative? Yeah, right? So it's either this or it's that. I don't know which one it is yet, do I? All right. Give me all the ways that I can get 40. Start with the biggest, go to the smallest. 40 and 1. Now, here's the thing, guys. Do I know anything? You guys agree that when this 3 goes here, this idea of what the middle number is, it messes everything up, right? Messes everything up. So I either have 40 and 1 or, oh, by the way, I know one's positive and one's negative, right? Or I have what? 40 and negative 1, right? So I have to consider both of those choices now because I don't really have a firm grasp on what those numbers have to be sign-wise yet. All right, give me another way to get 40. 20 and 2. Or the opposite signs, right? Another way to get 40. 8 and 5. And, oh yeah, we missed one. 10 and 4, sure. So here's the real problem with this, guys. The real problem with this now is we have what? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 options. We have to take all 8 of these options and consider them in both of these scenarios, right? So that really means we have 16 different things to check. Do we see why this is a total pain, right? So what's one thing we could check? Well, we could check 3x. So if I use this, right, I could do 3x plus 1, and then it would be x minus 40. But then I have to consider the other alternative if the terms were written this way, right? So that would be what? That would be 3x minus 40 and x plus 1, right? So those are all of the different ways that I could what? That I could go from here to here. And do you see, guys, right away why it's a pain, right? So do we agree that we need a better way, right? Agreed? We need a better way. Like I'm way too lazy to do this, okay? Now, if I'm sitting there with 3 hours on an exam and I tried another way and it doesn't work, can I do this? Sure, right? All right, well, let's talk about another way. 3x squared plus 19x minus 40. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to show you guys is the other way. All right, how do we deal with this in a more concise sort of approach, right? Something that will always work, almost like a routine, right? Almost like a routine. What I'm going to show you guys is called the AC method, right? And some of you probably remember this. Okay, some of you probably called it slip and slide, right? No, in Algebra 1, yeah. Does that phrase sound familiar to anybody? Okay, nobody uses that method anymore. Great. I don't use it either. AC method sound familiar? No. Okay, I see one head that shakes yes. Okay. Let me start with this. The very first day I told you guys that anytime we look at a trinomial or any quadratic, we can talk about terms as being A, B, and C, right? A being the thing before the x squared, B being the thing before the x, C being the number at the end. Agreed? Okay. So with this method of factoring, right, and I'm going to call this the AC method, and we're going to really formalize this in a couple of days. What you're going to do is this. You're going to take the A and the C, and you're going to multiply them. And you're going to get negative 120. Now, here's what you need to do next. You now need to list all of the factors of negative 120. Guys, yeah, there's a whole crap load of them, right? A whole bunch. What are all the possible factors? Well, negative 120 and 1. But there's also the flip signs of that, right? So that. All right, give me another one. 60 and 2. Okay, what's the next one? 30 and 4. All right. What's another one? I heard 15 and 8. I heard 20 and 6. I'm going to show you guys a nice little trick. All right. If you ever run into this on an exam where you're like, geez, I can't think of all the factors, right? Watch what you can do. It's the coolest thing in the world. Not really, but I like it. What number are we trying to find all the factors of? Negative 120, okay? So what you're gonna do, guys, is this, all right? And this will give you all the possible factors, and it'll give you all the possible factors in order too, right? Watch this. What you're gonna do is you're gonna create a graph. You're already like, this is way too hard. Come on, Picardo. But watch how easy it is, right? Take the number that you want. So 120 is the number, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to divide that by x. Okay? So you're going to take whatever number it is that you're trying to find the factors of, you're going to divide it by x, okay? And nothing happens, right? So you're going to go to your table, Control T. And look at what you have here, guys. 1 and 120, 2 and 60, 3 and 40, 4 and 30. Isn't that the ones that we came up with so far? Yeah, look at that, right? So here's all of them, right? In order. So how nice of me, right? I just gave you the coolest thing in the whole world. Now there's one thing about this, guys, which is kind of important. You're looking for the ones that are integers, right? Like so this is not going to be one of your answers, right? You're not going to use this, okay? Now, guys, here's what I'm really looking for. I'm looking for two numbers that have a difference of 19. And I think they're right here. Okay, so I'm going to write down 5 and 24. So I have negative 24 and 5, or 24 and negative 5. Okay, and I'm sorry, I said the word difference. I should have said the word sum. Okay. Do any of these numbers, so if I now take these, ready? So these are all the factors, right? So now what I want to do is this. I now want to find the sum of all of these things. So guys, if I added these two numbers together, it's going to be negative 119, right? If I added these two numbers together, what am I going to get? Positive 119. Right? Somebody owes you $60, they give you two, they still owe you what? $58, right? You have 60 bucks in your pocket, you spend two, you still have 58, right? So this would be negative 26, this would be positive 26, this would be negative 19, this would be positive 19. And here's what I'm looking for, guys. Ready? I'm looking for the one that matched that. I'm looking for the one that matched that. Now, guys, this is a pretty complex example of this, right? But with the calculator, I can get the factors relatively easily. I can find the sum of those relatively easily, right? Now, here's the last step that you guys had to do when you use this technique. All right. I know for a fact that I have a positive 24 and a negative 5 in those two positions. Okay. This is where the technique gets a little loony. Okay. And if you're not paying attention, this is where I'm gonna lose you. Okay. It becomes a little bit of magic math right now, guys. You see that term in front? The only reason we're using this whole method is because of what? That 3. That 3, right? So what you're going to do, guys, is you're going to take whatever this is, not the square, Ariel, not the square, just the 3x. And you're going to put it here and here. But, Mr. Ricardo, 3x times 3x is 9x squared. You messed up. Yes, I know. Because there's one more step. Ready? Look at this term right here. Is there a GCF in here? There is, right? What number can I take out of both of these? A 3. When I take that out, what do I get? X plus 8, right? Guys, in the next factor, in this, was there a GCF in these two things? No, right? Now, this is where it becomes a little bit of magic math, you know. I said what? I said that this 3 is like a GCF, right? If it was a GCF, it should still be in front of this, right? It just disappears, okay? It just disappears, okay? And what's x times 3x? 3x squared, right? So there's your technique. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time using this technique. Right? I'm not going to just spend like show you once and be done with it. But we have the answer. This is the correct factored version. And there's a nice method to doing it, okay? Let's do the one below, same way. Yeah, that one took a long time. Now, the reason that one took a long time, Isaiah, is because when I multiply these together, I got some big numbers, right? It wasn't a real easy thing to take factors of, that 120. A lot of options there, right? This next one, not as many options, so I think you're going to like this one probably a little bit better. Again, I'm not going to use this method, guys, unless this is not a 1, right? So I'm going to use this AC method. I'm going to take these two things and multiply them. And then I'm going to list all the factors of what? Of 36. Now, guys, I'm going to stop for a minute. I know that 36 is a positive number, right? Yes? Notice the middle number. The middle number is what? Negative. So what do we automatically know? The two factors have to both be what? Negative. Because there's no way that I can multiply two negatives and add two negatives and not get this negative in the middle, right? Has to be two negative numbers. Okay, give me all the factors of 36. Negative 36 and negative 1. Give me another one. Negative 18 and negative 2. Give me another one. Negative 12 and negative 3. How about negative 6 and negative 6? How about negative 9 and negative 4? Any that I'm missing? No good, right? Okay. So those are all the factors. We agree with that? Isaiah, now I want all the sums. If somebody owes you 36 and they borrow another buck, they owe you 37. Somebody owes you 18, they borrow $2 more, they owe you. Everybody good with that? And what am I looking for, guys? I'm looking for the one that matches. There's the one that matches. So I have to use those two factors, negative 12 and negative 3. So, Isaiah, a little bit better so far, right? Got to my answer a little bit quicker. So I know I'm going to do this, and I know that I have to use the negative 12 and the negative 3. Correct? This is where it becomes a little magic math, right? What goes in the front of both of these? The what? The 2x. Do I put the squared there? No, just the 2x. Okay, what's 2x times 2x? 4x squared. Is that what I want this first term to be? No, so I know that one of these has to what? It has to have a factor to take out of it, right? 2x minus 12? What can I take out? A 2, right? What does that give me? X minus 6, right? How about 2x minus 3? Is there anything I can take out of that? No, so guess what? I'm done. Isaiah, that was a little bit better, right? Not quite as long. But do you guys agree that had you had to do that by hand with guess and check, it would have taken forever? Right? Does that technique look familiar to anybody now that we've done it a couple of times? A little familiar? Okay. Guys, I'm not going to do anything on this page here. Okay? We're going to stop right there.